Hello, how you doing?
I'm well, thanks for asking.
Awesome. So real quick, are you a Christian?
I am, yes.
Awesome. How long have you been a Christian for?
4 years.
Okay, cool. And do you like subscribe to any kind of denomination, or are you more like open?
I'm Roman Catholic.
All right, I got you. I got you. So yeah, what are your thoughts? What do you want to talk about?
How do we know the Bible is true? There's extant corroborating data to support the claims of the Bible. The Babylonian incursion in Jerusalem, the Canaanite Wars, the Temple of Solomon, the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, Nabonidus, Cyrus the Great. These are all people who existed. They're all documented by the text of the Bible. In fact, the text of the Bibles, especially Ezekiel, Daniel, Jeremiah, Hosea, these prophetic texts are all usually the first written records we have of any of these people. And then there's subsidiary records that come much later. But there's plenty of things in the Bible that we can confirm are absolutely true. People, locations. Now, whether or not the events that are described in the Bible are true, that's up to the person's conviction. But we can't actually demonstrate whether or not a thing in history happened unless we were there. History is determined by what most probably happened. That's the way that most historians would try to analyze it.
Sure, I have no problem saying that there are some events and people mentioned in the Bible that actually happened in history. But I think that we can only go as far as to say that the Bible is an amazing piece of historical fiction, but nothing more than that. Because, it's no different to me like seeing, like TV
Only if you
shows that involve,
presuppose.
historical fiction that talk about, like there's a show that I watch. It's time travel. It has time travel, and they go and they see Abraham Lincoln, George Washington, all these people. These are real people that lived. These are true events in history. But I think if you were to tell me that this TV show was actually reality, then I would want to know. Talk to me about the time travel. Talk to me about the scientific advancements that were done in this show that we don't have here at present day to show me that that's real. So the Bible,
Yeah.
as a whole, its claim is making this supernatural claim. So when we're saying, is the
Well, there's
Bible
lots of
true?
books in the past that make.
So when we're saying,
Yeah,
is
there's
the
lots of
Bible
books that make
true?
supernatural
I'm
claims.
sure, yeah, we can say like some people, some places were real. But I want to know, like, did the resurrection of Jesus actually happen? How do we know that there's a God?
I believe that it did.
The supernatural battle over our souls. What is the evidence of that? Things of that nature. The miracles that are claimed in the Bible. Elijah taken up by a
Sure,
chariot
well,
into
let's
heaven.
start
How do
with
we know
one,
that
and
this
then
stuff
we'll.
is possible? You know?
Yeah, let's start with one, and we can go from there. So you said the resurrection of Jesus.
Yeah, and I
Why don't we
think that
start
that would
there?
be honestly the best place to start. How do we know the resurrection of Jesus is a true event in history?
As far as the historical account goes, there's more overwhelming evidence for the resurrection of Jesus than there is for the life of Alexander the Great.
Like what?
You have more, yeah. Well, the four Gospels were written independently of each other, many decades apart. The epistles of Paul. Then you have Roman references to the crucifixion and the believed resurrection of Jesus in Josephus' Antiquities of the Jews, book 15. Tacitus Annuls. Or no, it's book 18 in Rome, Josephus' Antiquities of the Jews. You also have letters from Marabar Serapion, Clement of Rome. Going later into the 2nd century, you have Origen, Cassius, many of the church fathers. Pliny the
These
Elder.
letters saying what? They present the
That there was a
evidence
man.
that the resurrection happened.
Let's analyze the claim, right? So you have a man named Jesus Christ, or a man named Jesus of Nazareth. There's no doubt amongst historical scholars that he existed. You have a few, French historical scholars like Richard Carrier and Robert Price and Brent Shaw who are, mythicists.
Yeah, so
But
we can't
oddly
say
enough,
there's no, but I would say the majority agree with you that yeah, Jesus was a real individual. Sure.
well, so the evidence that Richard Carrier uses to denounce the existence of Jesus Christ as a historical person could also be used against Herodotus or Aristotle or Socrates or Plato. He obviously does not apply that standard of scrutiny to any of these other people, let alone Alexander the Great. But again, like I said, when it comes to just empirical data, we have way more for Jesus of Nazareth than we do for any of these other people. Like, for instance, Alexander the Great, the first written record of him is by Diodorus Siculus, who lived 260 years after Alexander the Great. The most common form of evidence that we use is the Historia Ecclesiastica of Herodotus, which is 350 years after the life of Alexander the Great. Whereas the Gospels were all written within 30 to 50 years after the death of Jesus Christ. The Pauline epistles were written within about 10 years of the formulation of the first churches. The creed that Paul references in 1 Corinthians no doubtedly dates back several decades prior to the first letter of the Thessalonians. Now, you also have the apostles themselves, who all profess to have observed the risen Jesus, to have believed this to be true. And we have strong evidence that at least 4 of them went to their deaths. They were brutally tortured and unalived, and tried to or forced to recant this claim, and they never did. The other apostles, there are pseudepigrapher writings documenting their martyrdoms. But the fact is, right, you have Jesus, he dies. There are a bunch of people who claim they see him rise from the dead, and there's only a couple of different answers you could use for that. The first is that they made it up. Well, we know that's not true, because they would not have willingly succumbed to brutal torture in defense of a lie. You have Paul, who himself was a renowned persecutor of the Christians for many years, and this is even recorded by the Jewish Sanhedrin that he betrayed them for the Christ cult. Now, back in the day, they didn't call themselves Christians; they called themselves doulos, which means slaves of Christ. And so the Sanhedrin, Gamaliel, who was leading the Sanhedrin after Ananias, once Caiaphas was taken down, he documents that Paul was of an enslaved mind. And so you have these people who otherwise are very educated, erudite people. They're very learned. They speak multiple languages. They can write in multiple languages. And yet they're fishermen. So that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. How did they gain this ability? Well, the book of Acts tells us that they were endowed with the ability to speak many languages and to write many languages during Pentecost. Well, this seems to corroborate their ability to do so thereafter. And then you have at least 4 of them that we know for sure, and then the rest of them being reported thereafter going to their deaths to defend this claim. Do they all have a group hallucination? Unlikely. That's never happened before in all of human history. This would be the first time it ever happened. So in either case, you have an extraordinary event happening. Either the resurrection happened as they said it did, which is what I believe the evidence concurs to, or you have another extraordinary event, which is everybody hallucinated this, and then somehow this religion took over Rome in a mere 3 centuries.
Okay, so if I'm understanding correctly, you're saying that the evidence that we have are the claims of the apostles themselves, saying that they saw the resurrected Christ, and then they, went to their martyr deaths for him, and this claim that they saw him. And that we have the writings of the historians at the time saying that people were claiming to see the resurrected Jesus, correct?
Yeah, this is all the same level of evidence that we use to determine that Aristotle actually taught Alexander the Great, and that Plato was a student of his, and so on and so forth. You would be astonished to realize how much we don't actually have written down from ancient history. Most people couldn't read it or write. The vast majority of history was passed down through oral tradition.
No, I'm sure, 100%. So the reason why that's not really compelling for me is because in all of this, I think that all we can really gather from what was presented is that people at that time most likely believed that they saw the resurrected Jesus, but yet we have no evidence that Jesus actually resurrected. We just have evidence that people believe that.
That is evidence.
People believing something is not evidence that thing happened.
Yeah, that's a part of it. Yeah, that's why eyewitness testimony is considered in a court of law. It is some type of evidence.
It's the worst kind of evidence. We would rather have any other kind of evidence than eyewitness, because eyewitness testimony is incredibly faulty. The human memory is incredibly faulty, which is why a camera will be believed over the human mind all the time, 100% of the time.
So you have the eyewitness testimony of it, but then you also have
we have a claim of it, right? But we want to verify the eyewitness claim. So what is the evidence that shows that the eyewitness claim is true?
So according to the Gospels, Christ predicted not only that he would rise from the dead, but that his church would never be prevailed against, and that it would go on to stretch across all the corners of the world. That happened. There's probably not a person alive today, with the sole exception of Amazonian tribes and the inhabitants of the Sentinelese Islands, who have not heard the name Jesus Christ and couldn't quote you something from the Gospels. Jesus Christ is no holds barred, the most influential and famous person to ever exist in the history of the world. Now, if God himself incarnated as a human to live among us and minister to us and teach us, would he not be the most famous and influential person to ever exist?
Maybe, maybe not. But if so, and if Jesus being the most influential person to exist, then I would have to then wonder, why is what people believe about his message so conflicting? Why is it so contradictory, depending on where you are in culture or denomination?
Christ also predicted that. So Christ also predicted that there would be many ravenous wolves, people coming in his namesake, and not all who call unto me, Lord, Lord, will enter my kingdom, only those who do the will of my Father will enter my kingdom. The divisions in the church didn't start happening for the first maybe 1,000 years. After the Council of Rome, there wasn't a schism in the church until 1054, and then after that it took another 400 years for the Protestant Reformation to begin. So you have a pretty much unadulterated history of the Christian church preaching, for all intents and purposes, the same doctrines and dogmas over 1,000 years. And the Catholic Church still stands to this day. It's the longest standing human institution of all time.
I still don't see how that means that what it claims is true, especially when it comes to a supernatural resurrection of a God. And I did want to address one point that you brought up when you brought up the mass hysteria and how, that hasn't happened in history when we have multiple examples of it. The first one that comes to mind is the miracle of Fatima, when thousands of people claim to see the sun dance in the sky. Hold on, please. I let you speak. Let me speak. When the sun danced in the sky, when we know that if that actually happened, there would be real world disaster that would happen if such a thing occurred, and yet thousands of people claim that it happened, even though there's no evidence of it. We also have the Salem witch trials, when people believed that their neighbors were witches, and it led to the violent death of many people. We have the nuns' hysteria in the 15th, 19th to the 19th century, where they ended up actually acting like animals. The monkey man of Delhi is when people actually got so scared and dropped dead because they thought they were being chased by this creature, and it was it was this thing that affected a group of people. There's Jerusalem syndrome, where people that visit the area might actually think that they are Jesus Christ himself and end up actually being hospitalized over that. So don't say that mass hysteria doesn't happen in our history or mass delusion, because it clearly does.
No, what I said was that we would have the first case of people hallucinating a thing and then willingly going through torture and murder to defend it for decades. We're talking decades upon decades.
But that seems way more likely than a supernatural resurrection.
No, not really.
Because we know that mass hysteria is a natural thing that can happen, and if one truly believes that what they're saying is the truth, then yes, I can definitely see how they would die for it. So if someone truly believed that they saw Jesus rise from the dead, I don't see any reason why they wouldn't go to their death saying that that's truly what they believe they saw. But that doesn't mean they actually saw it. Where's the evidence that Jesus actually rose from the dead?
Yeah, so this is a problem of presupposition, right? So if you just presuppose that there is no supernatural answer because the supernatural is impossible, you'll come up with any alternative
I didn't say the
supernatural
is impossible.
Available. Okay, so is the supernatural possible?
Maybe. Show the evidence.
Well, as I said, the experiences of these people would be part of that evidence. What you're saying is until you see it yourself, you won't believe that it's the case. But I mean, the people say the same thing about the flat Earth, right? That they personally observe with their own eyes and ears that the Earth is in fact flat and that the sun rotates around the Earth, which you can't deny. According to the internal perspective of a human being, it does appear to be the case that the sun rotates around the Earth and not the other way around. It took evidence beyond what we were able to observe for ourselves to determine that this is the case. And the supernatural, by its very nature, is not something that's readily measurable or testable within the physical realm, but its effects are. And this is where these events come into play. You talk about the miracle of Fatima. 50,000 people claim to have observed this, okay? Well, there's also video of it. It's not great video, but there was something happening there that they observed. Now, was it actually the sun dancing in the sky? Probably not. But they were seeing something, and that's just how they happened to describe it. Okay.
So you agree that people could believe they saw a thing, and that's actually not what they saw, correct?
They didn't all describe
you
it
just
as the
agreed
sun
that.
dancing in the sky.
But you just agreed
No,
that people could believe they saw a thing, and that's not actually what they saw.
Well, that's what we're saying is they didn't see the sun dance in the sky.
Okay.
That's just what it looked like. But most of the people there.
So
didn't
that's what I'm
report
saying
the
about
sun
the
dance in
apostles.
Sky. Most of the people there reported that they saw an apparition of Mary, which is what the three children predicted would happen.
That was one of the three
to see.
miracles that was predicted by the children. There were 3 miracles that were predicted.
Yeah, and these people saw it. 50,000 of them.
So they claim.
Right? Yeah, so they claim.
So they claim. So
and
again,
I mean, I can give you personal anecdotes of miracles.
Claims are cool and all, but what is the evidence to back the claims? So we have we have Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. We have the claims. What is the evidence that backs these claims?
Yeah. So when you say evidence, what do you mean by that?
Any kind of data or pieces of information that can show the proposition to be true.
Yeah, so the eyewitness testimony, the willingness to die for a lie.
That's the claim.
The person, no, that's not the claim. That's a fact. They claim to have seen it. They went to their deaths to defend it. They were persecuted relentlessly for decades. The religion took over the world. It remains the most dominant religion to this day. The predictions of Jesus Christ came true, right?
What predictions?
And we have
what predictions?
The destruction of the temple, his own resurrection.
We're talking over his resurrection right now. We haven't determined that happened.
Well, let's say that one didn't happen.
Well, that's a big problem.
The temple
then.
was destroyed. The temple was destroyed
because in 1 Corinthians 15 it says that the resurrection of Jesus didn't happen. Your faith is in vain. So the resurrection of Jesus has to have happened. What is the evidence that Jesus rose from the dead?
Yeah. So we have the eyewitness testimony. We have their suffering.
Claims.
We have the persecution of the Christians. These are not claims.
The first one was a claim.
These are not just claims. No, it's not. The claim that people saw it is not a claim.
I'm saying people claimed that they saw it. What is the evidence that they actually saw it?
That is evidence.
So
okay,
so all the people in the world across all the different cultures that claim to have been abducted by aliens.
I agree.
Do you take that as evidence?
I agree with you.
Or do you take that as a claim?
I agree with you that by itself isn't evidence. But then when you tack on the fact that multiple people claim to have seen this, multiple people went to their deaths while in a position to know that it was a lie, multiple people endured relentless, unyielding, brutal persecution. They fed these people to lions. You can't even
if they
imagine
believed it
the
was
kind of
true,
horror
then they
these
didn't
people
die
lived
for a
through.
lie. They died for what they believed was true.
All of them?
If they truly believed that it was true, then yes, they died for what they believed was true. People, just because someone believes something is true doesn't mean it's true. There are martyrs in every single religion. There are martyrs in every single religion. That doesn't mean that the religion is true.
To know that it's false. That's not in a position. Not when the people are in a position to know that the claim is false.
Okay, and what if they didn't know? And what if they didn't know? What if they truly believed?
Why would they truly believe it if they didn't see it?
People get convinced by things they don't see all the time.
Yeah, that's a more extraordinary claim.
It's not. It happens every day.
If you recount,
if your wife comes home and tells you, "Oh, honey, my coworker stole my coffee creamer out of the fridge today," would you believe her?
Yeah, if somebody put
even though you didn't see her, you didn't see her. Why would you believe her?
If someone put a gun to your head and said, "Tell me the Earth is flat," that you believe the Earth is flat, or I'm going to shoot you in the face. Would you tell them the Earth is flat? Yeah, you. So
you agree.
You know for a fact the Earth isn't flat, and you would in an instant recant that position and say it is flat if someone threatened your life.
Sure.
What if someone threatened to feed you to a lion? What if someone tied you to a rack and stretched out your limbs until you couldn't breathe?
Do you have children?
What if somebody dropped you in a pot of boiling water?
Do you have children, sir?
I do not.
Okay. Imagine you had a child and someone broke into your house in the middle of the night and you hid your child in the closet in the laundry bin. You put the lid over them and you told them, be quiet no matter what happens until I come for you or until a police officer comes for you. Be quiet. And you go out to confront the intruder. And let's say you lose that fight and they demand to know if anyone else is in the house. Are you going to tell them that you hid your child in the laundry bin in the closet? Or are you going to die saying that? Or are you going to die saying no, it's just me in the house?
No, of course I would protect my child.
Okay, so you understand that yes, depending on the circumstance, you would die for a lie knowing it.
Okay, so in the instance that you brought up, there's somebody else who I deeply care about involved.
You are still dying for a lie while knowing it. It depends on the circumstance.
In the instance I'm referring to, there's nobody else involved. It's just them. They have the ability to save themselves as long as they recant the faith, which if they knew it was false, they would do so.
Okay. So if they knew it was false, there could be another reason. Maybe they believed their cause was more important. But it is not my position that was the case. Hold on, sir. But it is not my position that was the case. It is my position that they truly believe this. They died for it. That doesn't mean that their belief was true. So I don't know why you're trying to argue a position that I don't hold.
Yeah, them dying for something they would have been in a position to know was false is evidence that what they believe was true. Nobody does that. Can you give me a singular example?
I just did.
Of somebody who
remember.
was in a position. No,
you said that you would die for a lie, knowing that it was a lie. If someone was, yeah.
I am not dying for the lie. I'm gonna die either way. I'm saving my child.
But you are lying.
That's what's happening.
You are knowingly lying, and you are dying for it.
You are knowingly lying right now when you try to compare the two examples. If a person,
I'm so sorry you're upset because I was able to bring up an example like that, and you admitted that you would lie for it.
That's not analogous at all.
It is because you are dying while saying a lie, and you are knowing.
No, I'm not dying for the lie. I'm gonna die either way. Somebody has broken into my house.
Okay, so what if you don't? What if you don't? What if you don't? Let's say you get taken by somebody and they say, "Hey, we're not looking for you. We're looking for your roommate and his family." You know, let's say you live.
Now you're bringing other people into it again.
Yes, again.
Give me an analogy. Where I have to die for something that I know to be true, but I'm willing to lie and die for the falsity of the claim.
Yeah, they were dying. Yeah, they were dying for
somebody else. Not for somebody else. For myself.
Oh, I'm sorry. What?
For myself.
Okay. So
I want you to give me an example.
So it's okay to die for a lie sometimes. It's okay to die for a lie sometimes. Is what you're saying. Only if it's okay for other people.
You're okay.
So now you're changing your position.
What they were being tortured and unalived for was professing that Jesus Christ had risen from the dead.
Sure.
Nobody else was at
and saying that he was God.
Yes.
Okay.
And if they had simply recanted that, they would have been freed from their persecution.
Okay.
This was the mandate.
Just because they didn't doesn't make it true.
But it's evidence that it's true.
It's evidence they believed it.
Yeah, and evidence they believed it is also evidence that it's true because
I would say it's evidence they believed it, or evidence that they believed that dying would be worth it over not dying.
Let me. Well, that doesn't make any sense because if it's false, then it wouldn't be worth dying for.
It depends on the cause, man.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Again, can you give me an example of a person who's willing to die for a lie on a claim that does not have anybody else involved?
What about the Jim Jones cult? Where almost 1,000 people died for something that a lot of them were kind of sketched about, that they weren't sure about, but they did it out of the faith they had for their follower or for their leader.
Yeah, but those people weren't in a position to know that it was a lie.
How were they not in the position to know that the man that was living next to them was not a god? If they couldn't know that the man living next to them was not a god, then the apostles couldn't know that the man living next to them was a god.
Unless he rose from the dead.
Okay, did he do that? Where's the evidence? I'm waiting. I've been waiting this whole time for the evidence.
I am literally giving it to you right now.
Where is it? Show it.
The overwhelming historical records of this person who existed that trounces the historical records of people who were arguably far more significant than he at the time.
I don't care about the comparison. I want to know.
Not to mention
I want to know that this person rose from the dead via supernatural resurrection by God.
Yeah, he did.
Okay, where's the evidence?
I just gave it to you. You just don't want to listen to it.
You said, oh, because this guy has been attested to exist, and then these other guys, that we know existed died for their belief in it. Okay, cool. Where's the evidence that it actually happened?
What do you think would qualify as evidence that it actually has happened? Because keep in mind, we're talking about a historical event. So a historical event during a time when
historical evidence, archaeological evidence, historical writings and stuff like that.
Expect to see for. Well, we have plenty of historical writings of it.
Sure.
You're just hand-waving away all of those historical writings.
Where are the historical writings by historians of the time that said, wow, Jesus, who I wrote about his death yesterday, just appeared to me today and is telling me, hey, I'm alive, and this is, what I'm going to do now, and I'm going to spend the next 40 days doing X, Y, Z, and I'm going to show myself to the apostles. Where's that?
Yeah, where are the historical records about Alexander the Great's conquest?
I don't give a shit about Alexander the Great. I'm asking you about Jesus.
Wait a minute. So you're saying to
I don't know why you're pivoting to Alexander the Great. I never brought it up. You keep bringing it up. I'm asking you just one simple question. What is the best evidence you have to say that Jesus actually resurrected from the dead via supernatural resurrection by God?
The prevalation of the Christian religion throughout history.
So what?
Everything he predicted came true. The only claim that you can say Jesus made that did not come true is his own resurrection. But everything else he said came absolutely true.
Well, if his own resurrection didn't happen, then that's everything. That's a big deal. Well, even the Bible itself says that everything crumbles without that.
That's the claim in contention.
Okay, so show the evidence.
There's no historical evidence of it. Yeah, saying there's no evidence of it based on your arbitrary standard of what qualifies as evidence does not disprove that it happened. You're just saying that you personally aren't convinced. But everything else...
Yeah, you've shown nothing to convince me.
And that's verifiable.
You've shown nothing to convince anyone. All you presented are people made claims and people died for these claims. So we can conclude that these people died for something they believed. Cool, I'm with you on that. Where's the evidence that what they believed was actually true?
This was enough to convince the entire Western world and 2.4 billion modern people. So it is enough evidence.
Okay, that's
not enough evidence for you. You're special.
Okay. All right, I'm so sorry that I have a higher standard of evidence because I care about what's true.
But you
don't, because if I accepted this standard, then I would have to accept every religion that has martyrs. I'd have to accept Islam. I would have to accept. Yes, I would.
Muhammad wasn't martyred. Neither were any of his imams.
Islam has martyrs.
Islam was spread at the tip of a sword.
Islam has martyrs. Islam is persecuted, and Islam is if it continues on with the rate that it's going to overtake Christianity as the world's most popular religion.
But it won't.
So in the next 10, 20 years, what are you going to do when Islam is top dog and has all these people that are persecuted all over the globe? It's going to be the same claims that you make now. So what?
What are you going to do when it doesn't happen?
Still say so what? Neither religion is able to prove their thing is true.
So the unique thing about Christianity is the people who spread the religion across the world were in a position to know that it was false. Okay, Muhammad, although being in a position to know it was false, was never persecuted or tortured to recant. That never happened. Neither were any of his immediate lieutenants. They were the ones who carried out the violence and the massacre against anybody who wouldn't kneel.
I believe it was Muhammad's own brother-in-law or something like that was a martyr. It was someone in his own family that was a martyr for him. So yeah, there were people that were alive during Muhammad's time that were his followers that got martyred for him. So again, just because there's a martyr does not mean that the religion is true. Does not mean that the resurrection of Jesus is true.
The point. You keep intentionally missing the point.
You keep distracting from the
point. There's a distinction between people who die in a position to know that it's a lie, and they're given an opportunity to recant. They don't take it, knowing that they're going to be relentlessly tortured, and they still don't do it. They still don't recant. But you're trying to compare this to people who are not in a position to know that it's a lie and are killed quickly without the opportunity to recant.
And you're
refusing to acknowledge the
distinction. So what? I understand the distinction. What?
Is there more credence to a martyr who knew that they were in a position, like who was in a position to know it was a lie, or more credence for a martyr who does not know that
it depends on the situation. It depends on what they're dying for. It depends on why. I don't know. We need more context. But what we do know is that
what would you willingly lay down your life for, atheist preacher? What would you die for? What
a lot.
Idea,
my family, my friends,
no,
freedom,
I'm not asking for
equality.
People. I'm not asking for your people. That you certainly would not die for either of those things.
I absolutely would, and I think that you making the weird assumption that I wouldn't is just showing ignorance on your part. I don't take the assumption that you wouldn't.
You know how I know that you wouldn't? Because you're certainly currently sitting from the comfort of your own home having a conversation on the internet using a phone that has been brought to you by the modern wonders of the world.
So by that criteria,
Africa for freedom.
By that criteria, does that mean you also would never lay down your life for freedom or equality? Because you are also in the comfort of your own home on the phone with. Oh, really? You wouldn't?
Of course I wouldn't.
You would not lay down your life for. You wouldn't fight and potentially lay down your life for freedom and the equality of others, for your children after you, for your friends, for your family. Oh, all right. You're just a piece of shit.
No.
You're just a piece of shit. So this is the subjective Christian morality that everyone talks about. This is so dumb.
No, now you're just babbling. I don't want my children to be equal to me. I want them to be better off than me. I'd die for that. I die to make sure that my children have a better, more prosperous life than I do.
I didn't say equal to your situation. I said equal as far as equality, which means that no one can go up and mistreat your child, just like your child cannot go and mistreat someone else.
Yeah,
is that the kind of world that you want your child to live in?
No, I want my child to live in a better world than I live in, and I would be willing to die for that. I'm not.
So you don't want your child to live in a world where no one could take advantage of them and that they couldn't take advantage of other people?
When did you stop beating your wife? When did you stop beating your wife?
What kind of a question is that? I don't have a wife, so I don't know what you're talking about.
So when did you stop beating her?
I don't have a wife. Your question's nonsense. Are you ready to actually address the topic at hand?
See, you're not willing to address the topics. I've been trying to argue in sincerity with you, and you just keep jumping off onto these different.
Dude, you just brought up bad points, and when I pointed out why, you just jumped to other things. I'm so sorry you can't actually back your position. But all you've done is say, "Hey, I can show how the resurrection of Jesus is actually a true event in history." All you brought were claims, and then you're like, "Well, people wouldn't die for a lie," and then you admitted a lie that you would die for, and then you got mad about it.
No.
And now here you are saying, okay, wrong. Okay, wrong. And now you're saying, I actually don't care about other people. I don't care about freedom. I don't care about equality. I don't care about this stuff. So I would never die for it. What kind of a dumbass answer is that when Jesus himself says, no greater love is this than the man who would lay down his life for his friends? And yet when I say that I would have laid my life down for my family and friends, you said, no, that's dumb. That's stupid. Blah, blah, blah. So please, stop with your gibberish. Stop with your gibberish.
Blatantly strawmanning me. I did not say
clarify your position then, and how you were not contradictory all left and right.
I never said anything about laying your life down for other people. I said that people would not lay down their lives for an idea they knew was false. That is the distinction. These people willingly were tortured and murdered for something that they would have known.
And when did I say that they would? I never said that they would either. I don't know why you're trying to argue with me about positions I never take.
So these people were not aware that it was false, but they were the best people to be aware if it was false. Correct?
Potentially.
Potentially. What's the alternative explanation?
Again, it is my position that they truly believed this, and they died for it. That doesn't mean their belief was true, and I would like the evidence that what they claimed and what they believed was actually true. I don't give a shit about all this other what if and what other positions other people hold. This is all I'm asking.
Yeah, so the claim that they believe that they saw Jesus Christ rise from the dead, that in itself isn't evidence until they're put to the test and they refuse to die. They refuse to recant, knowing that they would die. They could have saved their own lives, and they refused.
I don't see how that's evidence that it happened.
Peter himself had a wife. Peter had a family.
Cool.
And Peter willingly was crucified upside down. Not only was he crucified, which is probably one of the most horrific ways to die, but he specifically requested to be crucified upside down, which would have made the entire endeavor even more grueling, because he didn't believe that he was worthy to be crucified in the same manner that Jesus was.
Yeah, and that always baffled me. Even when I first heard that as a child, I was like, damn, that's so much more hardcore. Like, he was trying to one-up Jesus. Like, what the hell? Like, that whole thing
that's not
crazy.
What he was trying to do at all.
Yeah, I know, but that's how it comes
across.
That's not what he was trying to do at all. Like that's like, I can do it harder. Like, fucking do it. Like, that's crazy.
No,
absolutely
Peter
insane.
Peter wasn't flogged or whipped or beaten the way that.
How do you know?
He also probably, because the Acts of Peter doesn't document that he was tied to the cross upside down, so he would have died because the blood pressure would have run to his head, swelled up, and crushed his brain.
Okay, that's still horrible. And
it is.
And how does this make Jesus rose from the dead true?
He didn't take on the totality of all man's sufferings simultaneously on the cross either. So.
And how does this make Jesus' resurrection true?
I said, by itself, it doesn't. It's the combination of every other aspect of this, which is the spreading of Christianity. It really doesn't. It's taking over of the Roman Empire, the predictions of Christ coming true, like the destruction of the temple, the reviling and mocking of his followers, the persecution of his followers, the fact that nothing
so many cult leaders,
church, which it hasn't.
So many cults get persecuted. So what? Saying that you guys are going to be ridiculed for following me is not a strong argument.
How many cults go through that kind of persecution and become the most dominant religion?
Everywhere. You know how many cults get bullied everywhere you go? You know how many times people the Mormons at Walmart get picked on when they're loading their groceries. People point at, laugh at them. People say shit to them. People say slurs and mean shit to them. People call them stupid and idiotic. And can you imagine a world where legally they could put their hands on them, like in this ancient Near East situation? Yeah, it would probably be a lot worse. Every single cult gets ridiculed. For a cult leader to say, you're going to face some persecution for following me, it's like, no shit, of course. Like, how stupid would you be to not expect that?
Yeah, so, again, with the Christians in particular, right? So, for instance, the Mormons, right, when they were in their heyday in the middle to late 19th century, were not the ones being martyred. They were the ones doing the martyring. They would attack bandwagons in such a way to make it look like Indians attacked them, and they would kill all the men and then take the women and children as slaves. The Christians were not doing that. The Christians were entirely pacifistic all the way up until about the 6th century. They took over Rome without shedding a single drop of blood. No other religion in history has done that.
It still doesn't make the resurrection true. I'm still waiting for an answer for that.
Atheist. Do you think that there's one specific fact that would point to the resurrection being true, or would it be a culmination of them?
It would be a culmination, but nothing you've presented shows that it's true. Everything that you've shown, everything that you've shown gets me to the position that these people died for something that they most likely believed in, and I understand that, and I can empathize with that, and I can very strongly say that they should not have been persecuted or killed for their belief in that. Yeah. That's my position. So you have not given me any evidence. But you have not given me any evidence to say that Jesus rose from the dead, and this is how we know.
I've given you overwhelming evidence. You just refuse to accept it because you don't actually have a standard of evidence. You tell me what would convince you in this moment that Jesus Christ rose from the dead.
Any kind of solid historical, archaeological, or scientific data or pieces of information that can show that the proposition that Jesus rose from the dead via supernatural resurrection from God to be true. Do you have anything like that?
Like what? Like what? What would be an example of that? What would you need to see?
Sure. Is there a way that you can demonstrate the power of God?
Demonstrate the power of the existence of the universe.
How does that correlate? The existence just because the universe
itself is
just because the universe exists doesn't mean that God exists or does anything with it.
Well, that's exactly what it means. It's a necessary and sufficient condition.
In your worldview, okay.
Well, no, in anybody's worldview, and
Not mine.
you can fall into the trap all you like. Really? So how does the universe exist?
I have no idea. It might be a God, but it might not be. I can think of ways where it might not be.
Well,
why can't you? Do you have no imagination?
There's only three possible options. Okay, either the universe has always existed, the universe began to exist without any antecedent cause or catalyst, or the universe began to exist because it was created by something else. Okay,
sure.
We can eliminate the first option. The universe has always existed. We know that's not true through scientific, because modern physics doesn't entail that. It
doesn't go against it either.
Thermodynamics for the universe to. Yes, it does.
Doesn't.
So do you understand how thermodynamics works? That the longer that
I understand. I understand that when it comes to like energy, things like that cannot be created or cease to exist. So I can definitely understand that while the beginning of this universe. Well, I can understand why the beginning of this universe via the Big Bang, which we don't understand exactly how it was triggered or anything that happened.
Yeah, so the universe hasn't always existed.
Hold on, sir. Hold on. While the Big Bang may have triggered the expansion of the universe that we see it how it is today, that doesn't mean that the universe didn't exist beforehand in some other method or way before. We just don't know. That's possible.
That's option. No, it's
like,
not.
It's pretty much like the Big Bang and Big Crunch analogy.
Yeah. Preacher, and the irony of your username doesn't escape me, which is how I know that you're really not open to hearing any information content.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. What do you think my username means? Person who doesn't know me or why I chose my username. What do you think it means?
That you preach atheism.
No, dumb shit. If you took 2 seconds to look at my bio, you would see that it doesn't say that, and that you would see that I don't mean that. Maybe instead of making some dumb assumptions, you can ask me.
My username is, I like Britney Spears, but I don't actually like Britney Spears. Yeah, Freudian slip on your part, dude.
Okay. So you're happy to stay in your ignorant assumption instead of asking me what I mean by my username? And this is a test to see how intellectually honest you are.
Sure. What does your username mean? Atheistic preacher?
Thank you. Okay, so one of the biggest things that shaped me in my deconstruction journey was that I came across a podcast called Your Atheist Pastor. And it was something that really opened my eyes in a lot of ways. And it is something that I therefore then take on. I am not a pastor, but just because I'm not a pastor does not mean that technically the word for preaching is just giving a talk about religious texts and stuff like that, and that's what I do. And then when it comes to atheistic, I am an atheist. So I'm an atheist who likes to talk about religion and talk about different religious texts over a long period of time to different people, talk about what exactly they say, and learn the most I can while also teaching the most I can about
astounding
it. And so that is what I do. So where in that whole explanation did you get this dumb assumption that I somehow preach atheism?
You literally just said, I am an atheist and I preach about religion. So you yourself don't believe in a religion. And if you're going to have a rhetorical conversation with people, you're trying to persuade them not to believe.
So I don't preach atheism. Are you admitting that now? You admit you were wrong?
You literally just said that's exactly what you do.
Where did I say I preach atheism?
I am an atheist who preaches about religion to people.
No, so I said that I am an atheist who talks about religion and different religious texts to different people, and where I share my position, they share theirs. I teach them things. I learn things from them. Where on earth does that have anything? Where on earth does that say I preach atheism?
That's not preaching.
Yes, you know what preaching is? Yeah. What is preaching?
Inquiring is not preaching. Preaching is delivering a message, a rhetorical message meant to persuade. That's the literal definition of preaching.
Yes, and I can do that when I teach people about what the Bible says.
Phenomenal. Don't care. Back to the argument about...
Yeah, I'm sure you don't care, because I'm sure I know more than you do about what the Bible says about a lot of different topics. So again, can you answer the question that you came on here to answer? What is the evidence for the resurrection of Jesus Christ?
I would be willing to bet everything I have that you don't know even a fraction of what I know about the Bible. I've probably forgotten more about it than you've learned. But on the topic of the universe being created by God, the infinite regress option is impossible. There cannot be an infinite series of past events because we would never arrive at the present. You can cohere this in your own mind.
We don't know that.
You're on a.
I'm glad that you think that you know that. That's great, but that's not a scientific consensus.
Sure, let's try it. If you're on a train and the train has to pass an infinite number of tracks before it reaches the station, does it ever reach the station?
Okay, that's great. That has nothing to do with what the scientific consensus is about
Are you
what we know about the beginning of the universe. And what is? I've been waiting for and I've been waiting. I keep asking for one question, and you just keep pivoting and pivoting and pivoting and pivoting and pivoting.
No.
What is the evidence for the resurrection of Jesus?
You asked me, could I demonstrate the power of God? And I said the creation of the universe itself. And you said,
okay, all right, cool. So demonstrate the universe was created by God, by a God.
The universe does not. Sure, I will. The universe, right, has not always existed. It entered into existence at some point. Prior to that, there was ostensibly nothing. So whatever acted upon the universe in order to instantiate its existence had to have the ability to will itself. Things which aren't conscious, which don't have minds, cannot act upon themselves to change their own states. A rock, for instance, can only be acted upon. It can never act upon something else. So a non-conscious, static state of affairs cannot begin moving. There can be no creation unless there is a creator, an authority to put that in motion. And that authority has to have a will, otherwise the static remains. If you have a static affairs of just nothing going on, that will never change. Something else has to be introduced into the system, and that thing has to have the capacity to move itself. Otherwise, we're back to infinite regress. What moved that versus what moved that, what versus what moved that. So in order for the infinite regress problem to be solved, whatever initiated this arrangement of affairs that we call the universe, itself could not have needed a cause. And the only thing that fits that definition is a God, specifically the classical theistic God.
Yeah, okay, how do you show that this is actually the truth, though? Because I can completely grasp my mind around this as a possibility, but I don't know how you can rule out the fact that it couldn't have been something else before.
Yeah,
or that it couldn't have been an infinite regress in some other way. And I don't understand how you can also point out, and I don't understand, hold on, and I also don't understand how you can say that this mover of this has to be uncaused, because I think you could say maybe something at some point. Hold on, because I think maybe you could say at some point maybe something was uncaused, but you can't prove that one specific being that therefore, or that one mind that caused this, is the uncaused cause. That's just an assumption you're making, and you're also kind of giving it this coat of what the Christian God is when it could be something else entirely. I don't know how you're fitting it into the Christian God.
No, this is your misunderstanding of classical theism, right? So there have been minds far superior to you or I who have analyzed these things for centuries before either of us were even born, okay? These arguments are not novel. So the impossibility of the contrary is what dictates the only other answer is true, right? If you have a couple of answers, right, it can only be one of these three things, and you can eliminate two of them because they're logically impossible. The only one left is the one that's true. And we can't eliminate God as logically impossible. That doesn't work. So that's the only one left. It also best explains the world that we live in. A naturalistic universe does not prefer a universe wherein life exists. There are an infinite arrangement of ways the universe could have existed in such a way that it did not facilitate or promote the existence of biological life, especially not the type of life that has a consciousness which can cohere of its own existence and analyze the universe from an internal perspective. There is no expectation of that under naturalism. There is the direct expectation of that under theism. That is exactly the type of world we would expect to live in if theism was true.
I think any world that quote unquote theism produces would be the world you could expect from theism, because whatever system it sets up is the way it's
No, because
gonna
there's
be.
also worlds.
So if
There are
if
worlds we would not expect from. There are types of worlds we would not expect to be the case under theism.
like what?
A type of world that's non-sustaining.
Why
We
not?
wouldn't expect to live in a chaotic, disordered universe, right?
That's
like
what
the kind that the
is that
universe
not
was.
what we live in now? This
No,
crazy,
we live in
this
a very
crazy
ordered universe.
world where even on this planet, the weather could change in 5 seconds and kill us. Any type of bug could kill us. Any kind of just the air is just hard for people to breathe. Cancer, the sun, it just gives it pollutes people. There, in nature, the animals, there are certain rams, their horns grow back and pierce their own skull and kill them. There's so many things in this just on this earth that are so random and result in our deaths because it cannot sustain us and we are not being able to be sustained by it. It seems that is the world we're living
not able
in.
to be sustained. Yeah, we're not able to be sustained by the entire universe, but the entire universe is arranged in such a way that we can be sustained. All right, if you adjust any of the constants of the physical parameters of our universe, even 1/1,000,000th of a decimal point, you could create a universe where atoms don't even form, where there is no energy for things to be put into motion, where there is no capacity for things to interact with each other because three-dimensional space doesn't exist.
I know we have a quite wide range of miles that things could be different and the world would still be pretty much the way it is now in the Goldilocks zone.
I'm not talking about the physical distance of the sun to the earth. I'm talking about the physical constants.
Is
which
that not what is
dictate
inside the
strong
universe?
weak nuclear force.
Okay, so this is part of the universe.
The Earth.
So
Yeah, the Earth can move closer or further from the sun every year. That's why we have the seasons. The Earth's orbit isn't elliptical; it's not a perfect circle. There are times.
no,
when the Earth
I
is slightly
understand
closer,
that, but
slightly
still,
further from the
things
Earth.
could be different by quite a few miles, and we would still be able to have life on Earth, and we would
Not-
still have people
not
claiming
the
we would
constants.
still have people claiming, oh, we're here because the universe was made for us. We don't know that. You can't show that. You're just assuming that.
Yeah, so like for instance, the constant of the weak nuclear force, if you adjust that either direction, 1/1,000,000th of a decimal point, atoms don't even form. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the specific location of the Earth in proximity to the sun. If anything, upon its initial
Okay.
instantiation, the Earth was considerably closer to the sun than it is now by thousands of miles.
And
But the
you can
sun
show that
happens
God
to have the
made it that
capacity-
way. Why?
No, he didn't. So within classical theism, like I'm not a young Earth creationist. Within classical theism, right, God did not directly orchestrate the exact particulars that we observe or experience today. He orchestrated an ordered universe that had the capacity to manifest that. God doesn't exist within time. He doesn't care about chronology. An intelligent creator would create a universe that has self-sustaining properties, which is the one that we observe now. In a naturalistic philosophy, there's no reason why that would be the case.
You also have no reason
They
to
would just
show
be a
that
brute
that couldn't
contingency.
have happened naturally. So
Well, I mean,
I-
other than the fact
I-
that, like I said,
don't get me
before,
wrong.
like
I
said-
understand where you're coming from, and I think it's a solid position to post as a possibility. But you're still not getting me to the point where you're showing that this is factual.
Yeah, so that's, again, the impossibility of the contrary, okay? Infinite regress is logically impossible. You can try and cohere that a million different ways. It'll all come out to impossible. The present that we experience would not be here if there was an infinite series of past events. Do you understand that if there is no first cause, there can't be a second or a third or a fourth? And the universe that we observe relies on cause and effect. Things have to happen in a specific sequence, in a specific order, in order to achieve effects. This is Aquinas' first cause argument, right? Whatever that first cause is both willing and able to initiate the preceding sequence.
Yes, I do
But if
understand
it's not
that.
willing or not because if it's not able or willing, then the preceding sequence never actualizes. So there are a bunch of things that we observe that are in motion. In the physical world, everything is in motion all the time, constantly, never ceasing. It's always in motion. Things are only standing still in relation to other things. Like a mountain is only standing still in relation to the rest of the planet, but it's still in motion. Not only at a molecular level, but at a macro level too, when you consider that it's sitting on a planet that's, spinning at 1,000 miles an hour and flying through space at 20,000 miles an hour. So everything is in motion. But everything could not have started in motion because that's incoherent. Motion begets motion.
Okay, sure. I do understand all that. And again, I completely understand how the Christian God can be proposed as a possibility. But I don't, again, see how we get to it being
ignoring
factual.
the Christian element of it.
And therefore, I can't ignore the Christian element because all of this is supposed to get us to showing the resurrection of Jesus happened.
Yeah, so we have to start with
this
God.
Literally has to be connected with Christianity.
It will be, but we have to solve this problem first, right? You saying, I don't understand how this gets us to Christianity. If I was able to convince you right now that a God exists who has a personal interest in our existence, would that not bring you closer in some aspect to Christianity being true?
It depends on the God. I don't know. You would get me a lot closer to believing a God exists, absolutely, but I don't know if if that's a Christian God or not.
If
it might not be the Christian God.
I know you don't know. It might not be, but are you closer? So if I take you from there's no evidence for
closer
God,
to believing a God.
Evidence for God. Yes. Now that you believe a God exists, right? If I was able to convince you God exists, would that bring you closer to Christianity?
The same way that it would bring me closer to Islam and all the other religions.
Sure, fine, but it would bring you closer to Christianity. So we have to start there. Then I can start, thrashing the other religions and pointing out why they don't map to what we observe about the world. Why Christianity best explains what we see about the world. But we have to start with God exists.
Okay.
And however you want to cohere it, whatever in.
And God and the definition for God to you is the uncaused cause, correct?
Yeah, that's one of his properties.
So that's not the definition for God? That's just a property? What is God to you?
That's how we can cohere that he exists. God is the substrate of existence. He is being. He's pure act.
But he has a mind.
He has a will. He doesn't have a mind the same way that we do, but he does have a will. He can make choices.
Can he think?
No. God doesn't think. He's aware of all true propositions simultaneously.
Can he experience emotion?
He doesn't contemplate like we do. Yes, he can experience emotion.
So he can't think, but he can process emotion?
Emotion insofar as there are certain states that God desires and certain states that God does not desire. We cohere that through proper analogy by identifying certain states with the wrath of God or the joy of God or the sadness of God, so on and so forth. So like in the Bible, when it talks about how God changes his mind and stuff, is that not God thinking and changing his mind? Especially when like people like Moses besought him. Yeah, that's what we call proper analogy. Okay, so the Bible is not meant to be taken literally, not even by the authors who wrote it. Like Genesis, for instance, is written in the form of a song. If you read it in Hebrew, it rhymes. All right, and obviously there are different creation stories that are probably told by the same people, but it would be maybe 1,500 years before these stories were written to paper. Okay, like the Bible by itself doesn't lead anybody to God. And if you need any evidence of that, just think about the fact that all the people who believe in God but only use the Bible as the instrument to get there all have radically different conclusions about God. But then you look at the Orthodox Church, the Catholic Church, I mean, and you see that this is an institution that has remained the same for 2,000 years because the Bible is not the sole authority to God.
Well, yeah, because if you went against the Catholic Church, they burned you.
That's not true.
Yes, the Catholic Church history is riddled with people that oppose them got hurt.
I mean, in a simplificator
So
form, but you can
so
look at
so
specific
when the
examples and you can
masses
see why.
that were uneducated and unable to read were ruled by an oppressive religious institution that threatened and hurt and killed those that went against them, then yeah, it makes perfect sense why, oh man, for all these years they've been able to keep to one thing. Yeah, because if they strayed from that, they got hurt. Like, no shit. That's not special. That's people doing people things. That's not showing some kind of supernatural reliance of the text or the claims of them.
Yeah, so let's take specific examples of when the Catholic Church used violence against dissidents. Okay, you have like the Crusades, which were military incursions against Muslim aggression. You have like the Albigensian massacre, which is the result of a death cult that was literally leading people into starving themselves and sacrificing babies. Yeah, they were put to the sword pretty swiftly. And then you have the Protestant Reformation, and at the beginning of the Protestant Reformation, the Catholics would not use any force against the Protestants. All right. What happened was the Protestants began going into Catholic churches and destroying icons, desecrating the effigies that they had in the church, desecrating the altar, desecrating the tabernacle, burning them to the ground. And then the military retaliation started. And most of these conflicts were over land and territory, not so much religious connotation. You could point to specific examples like maybe Sir Thomas More, who had a hard-on for burning Protestants at the stake, but this was not a Catholic institution and it was not sanctioned by the church. But the Catholic Church as an institution is the bedrock of modern education, modern enlightenment. I would probably wager that any of your fundamental values that you take for granted in the postmodern age are the direct consequence of Christian thought. The particulars might be different, how you apply them might be different, but the concepts themselves are exclusively Christian. For instance, there is no creed, doctrine, or religion prior to Christianity which teaches that all people have equal moral value and worth. That is exclusively Christian.
And yeah, but it's not practiced with Christianity. Society. It's not practiced. It's not preached. It's not practiced as it's preached. Well, no, because the people of God are always above the people that are not of God, and that has always been a conflicting issue. And that is how people were able to show, even in the Bible, how they would be able to justify things that happen today, like the Inquisition, them going against the enemies of God. Or people that were, or people that were trying to deceive the people from what the church was teaching them, like William Tyndale, and burning him at the stake. So these situations were again pointed to the Bible to justify the violence that the Catholic Church did take against those that opposed them. So just because they say, "Oh, everyone's equal," does not mean that they actually practice it. Because if they wanted to, they were able to very quickly throw you under the wagon and make you an other. And that is what many different denominations of Christianity do, even today, whether you're a Catholic or whether you're a Protestant.
Yeah. So again, let me get a drink of water before I continue this.
Yeah, no worries. Also, just so you know, I got about 5 minutes till I got to go to work, but yeah, you're good.
Yeah, so the idea that the people of God are better than the people that are not of God is a Jewish idea, not a Christian one. If you look at the Charlemagne expansion into the Germanic territories when they were taking on the barbarians, right? It was specifically denounced by what was his name? Pope Augustus and Charlemagne himself, that the barbarians should be put to death for what they considered to be blasphemy, right? Denigrating God or espousing a different God because they didn't know any better, right? At that time, they didn't have the restoration. They didn't have the revelation of the facts relevant to their salvation, all right? So they couldn't be held to account for their misdeeds. And so there was a concerted effort to try and bring them into the faith so that they could have salvation and, as in according, also be judged in accord to that belief. The same thing with the native tribes of North America, right? People look at the Catholic schools as some egregious travesty of justice, but they weren't, right? We're talking about the
ones that took indigenous children from their families and tried to brainwash them of their religious beliefs into the Catholic belief? Those churches?
You say
schools?
brainwash. Yeah, you say
indoctrinate.
brainwash because
Indoctrinate.
because you assume that the faith isn't true. But
no, actually, that's
not
not at all what I said. I said that they were indoctrinated, which is brainwashed. You know what indoctrination means?
Well, originally said brain. Well, if it's true, it's not indoctrination, right?
No, indoctrination is being taught something without the ability to question whether it's true. So yes, you can indoctrinate someone into something truth, but the process is determining whether it's indoctrination or not. Whether you are teaching them as fact without giving them the ability to question it, and that is what these Catholic churches were doing to these indigenous children that they stole from their families and ripped away after, again, causing violence to their homelands.
Well, they weren't causing the violence. The violence was ongoing. So just to give you an example, the Alexander Preparatory School in South Dakota specifically took in orphaned children, right? The prevailing media narrative is that they were taking children from families, but that wasn't true. They were taking in orphaned children after their parents were slaughtered by intertribal warfare. The Black Hawk and the Kiowa were going at it for 700 years before the Europeans ever stepped foot on the shores of the Americas. The alternative was that these children would remain in squalor and destitution, that they would live as nomadic hunter-gatherers 7,000 years in the past, and that they could potentially be abducted, enslaved, and raped repeatedly, if not tortured for fun by the enemy combatants of the other tribes.
So why didn't the church take it upon themselves to ensure these children grew up in their own homeland safely and protected, instead of removing them from it and putting them into schools where they indoctrinated them into their own religious belief, trying to breed out that savagery from them?
Yeah, A, because Catholicism is true. B, because these children were not going to live a very long and healthy life if they remained in the custody of the tribal overlords.
They could if the church took it upon themselves to protect these kids in their homeland till they grew up and were able to defend themselves. And it could have led to a beautiful truce between two different kinds of people. But instead, they had to enforce their religious belief over someone else by indoctrinating their weakest members because they were children that were taken out of hard times. And I don't know how you can justify that as a good thing just because you happen to think that the religion is true.
Yeah, adults were too. Like Sequoia, for instance, was taken as a teenager, and he was trained this way. And as a consequence of that, he managed to instantiate the longest standing treaty between the native peoples and the Europeans, which is the Treaty of the Cherokee, a tribe I happen to be a member of. He also was the one who developed their writing system. So if not for the Catholic interference, the Cherokee people probably would have been left to the wayside because they would have had no one to argue for them, no one to read or write, no one to speak the white man's language and be able to establish these things in law.
Okay, that's great. Do you think that the Catholic Church could have been able to share these amazing things without taking them from their homelands and indoctrinating them from their own religious beliefs to theirs?
No, I don't.
Why not?
I think that if they had tried... Well, because they tried and the result was not great. So like going back to the Blackfoot and the Kiowa Indian tribes, the South Dakota Preparatory School was raided a number of times, not because it was necessarily run by Europeans, but because the Kiowa wanted to take Black Creek children and use them as leverage against the Black Creek. This happened repeatedly in the early 19th, late 17th or 18th centuries.
Okay, and how does this go against anything I've said about the Catholic Church protecting these kids and ensuring that they don't indoctrinate them? None of this justifies the indoctrination. You can still educate people. You can still educate people without indoctrinating them of their own homelands and trying to teach them that what they had in their ancestry line beforehand was demons and demonic. Like you can't you can educate people without doing that.
Any entity that would require the ritual sacrifice and torture of children is a demon, first and foremost, and that's what many of these tribes worshipped. Right? Don't even get me started on the pyramid of Tenochtitlan. Okay, but when it comes to the Catholic Church specifically, even if you don't believe it's true, do you think it was better for these people to believe in Catholicism or in the primitive superstitions they believed in, which required child sacrifice?
I think indoctrination
Given
is
that
an
those
evil
were the-
that didn't have to be, that was not necessary in order to show education or
You're
progress
not
to the
looking at
people.
this. You're not looking this through the historical lens.
I am looking at it through the historical
true.
lens. I am looking at it through the historical
No, you're
lens. I'm
not.
so sorry
You're-
that just
let
because
me
I don't
ask you
agree
this.
with you is a problem for
Let's
you.
say
I'm
that
sorry.
let's say that we make contact with the
So
Centennials.
wait. I only have a couple minutes left, and I want to address something you said.
I want to make a point to you, and I hope that it resonates. If we were to make contact with the Centennials right now, who are still a primitive tribe living in the middle of the ocean, south of India, okay, and let's say that we make contact with them, do you think that we should teach them things contrary to their religious practices about medicine and surgery and things like that?
I think that we should teach them everything that we have best to what we know factual and educate them as best, but I don't think that we should try to indoctrinate them into a different religious belief.
Okay, well, hold on. So, yes, by providing for them the concepts of modern medicine, you would be indoctrinating them into a different belief because they don't believe those things.
Again, no. Again, what does indoctrination mean?
You tell me, because
indoctrination is teaching someone something is true without giving them the ability to question it. So if we were able to talk to these undocumented tribes and we say, hey, you take this vaccine and you won't have chicken pox, and they say, oh, I'm not sure about that, and we say, no, it is, and it's factual, and there's nothing you can ask or say about that, don't even question it, that would be an example of indoctrination. But if I say, well, let me show you how in our history the evidence of people getting chicken pox and how this vaccine has been able to reduce that and blah, blah, blah. And I show them the data and the evidence behind it. And I let them ask all their questions and make their own decision. That is not indoctrinating them.
Yeah, because you believe that what you're saying is true. That's the distinction.
That's not indoctrination. I'm talking about indoctrination.
Yes, it is.
No, indoctrination is teaching something is true without letting them question it.
And if these people question it and then still determine that what you were telling them wasn't true, now
okay, then they have determined that it's not true. They don't have to practice it, and they can continue on the way that they are.
So we keep letting them eat each other?
We can definitely do our best to discredit it, or to discourage it, and to offer relief to those that want to escape.
Discourage it? You're telling me that if you were
and offer relief to those who want to escape it.
You're telling me that when these people put a child on the pyre to be roasted alive and then consumed, you wouldn't stop that?
Yes, I would stop that.
Bingo, thank you. That's all I wanted to hear.
And this shows that Jesus resurrected how? This shows your belief is true how? This shows Catholicism was good for indoctrinating the indigenous children how?
Yes, the Catholic Church was good for indoctrinating.
And no. Wait. You made your point. Let me make mine before I have to get going. You have all this thing about, look at the way they treated their children. Look at how the Bible treated children. Jesus saying to follow the laws that call for killing kids. Please, let's not pretend like the New Testament, the Old Testament, or the Catholic Church in any way does not have that its history or its approval of killing children, of oppressing children, stealing children from their own homelands, or etc. So for you to say, but they were harming children, so what? Christianity, Catholicism, they harm children all the time. And I don't think that you're ready to say just because they harm children means the religion isn't true, because that would go against your whole dumb argument. But guess what? They do. Christianity harms children. Christians, Christian churches, Catholic churches have child sexual assault insurance. How idiotic is that? Because it's so prevalent in the religious leading institutions. So yes, and then when they can justify it by going to the Bible and say, but the Bible says to kill the children. The Bible says to kill those children. The Bible says that I can take the rod to that child. The Bible says, I can do this to that child. Then you have you can't stand on anything by being able to point at another religion and say, well, look at them. They're putting babies onto something to be burned. Okay, the Bible has the Bible God saying, go kill those kids. You are just as bad as them.
No, that's absolutely not true. B, a complete and total
I
deracination
can
of the
read you the
context of
Bible
those
verses. I can read you the
passages.
Bible verses of God killing children or ordering other people to kill children. So
Yeah,
let's
so
not
again, you're
pretend.
just
So let's not
jumping from
pretend that.
topic to topic.
No, you're no,
You
because
you were
you're no.
jumping from topic
I'm
to
making a
topic.
very relatable point. You were upset
No,
because these other
you were
cultures
jumping from
were
an
harming their
external critique
children. So
to an
it's
internal
good that
critique.
Catholicism went in and indoctrinated them. Okay, well, Catholicism supports a book where that God character also killed and oppressed children. So you are no
Yeah,
better than
so
them.
that's a lie. First and foremost,
Well, you
there
can
is
think
nothing in the
that, but
Catholic doctrine or
you're wrong.
dogma. There is nothing in the Catholic doctrine or dogma which maintains that it is impermissible in any way to murder a child.
So the
Nothing
Catholic,
whatsoever.
okay, so the
There is
Catholic
not a
dogma, so the Catholic dogma is against God.
no. The Catholic Church dogma is not against God.
Okay, so when God killed children in the Bible, you think that's wrong.
No, I don't.
Okay,
God's the author of
so you
life. God
agree
can
that
do as
yeah,
He pleases.
so you agree that God can kill children, that children could be killed, and it's fine.
Yeah, but that's because God is literally the author of life, which makes Him
Who
the
gives a shit?
authority over
Who
life.
cares? No, just because you give life
Well,
does not mean
apparently
you're
you
justifying
do
taking
because
it.
you're really miffed by it. Well, yeah, it does. I mean, first and foremost, if you're just going to use your own subjective pretense to determine what is and what isn't justified,
Okay, all
well,
right,
then
all
you're
right.
just boiling down morality to whatever it is you prefer.
So
But
so
we
you're
weren't on that
saying
topic. We were on the topic of the Catholic Church specifically using violence against people to coerce them into being Catholic. This was actually
yes?
prohibited by Catholic doctrine, right? The
Then why did they
Catechism
do it?
very explicit. They didn't.
They did.
They didn't.
That's fine. You can
Give me
lie
a
about
single
history
historical.
all you want, but
Give,
I'm sure
give
that
me a
is.
single. Give me a single historical example of the Catholics as an
We have been
institution or
talking about them.
decree
We've
of the
talked
church.
about the Christian school, the Catholic schools that have taken the indigenous children from their homelands and indoctrinated them into their own religion. We have talked about
Yeah, taking mostly
the
orphans.
Inquisition, and we've talked about William Tyndale. We talked about many examples where the Catholic Church used violence
What was the
against
Inquisition?
the people that went against them. So
No,
again,
no, 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 no,
don't
no, no, no,
don't
no,
try
no,
don't
no, no,
don't
no, no, no,
pretend.
no, no, no. Now you're
Hey,
pivoting
hey, now
again.
don't
What
pretend.
I asked you
Do
for.
not
What I
pretend.
asked you for.
Hold on.
What I asked
Dude,
you for was an example.
you're just
of the
wasting
church
our
using
time.
violence to
You're just
coerce
wasting our
people
time.
into Catholicism.
Oh my
You're bringing
god!
up
Oh my god!
examples of
Again,
retaliatory violence.
we have again
You're
things
not
that we have
bringing me
just
an
said.
example of offensive
Do not
violence.
pretend that we have not brought up historical examples of the Catholic Church using violence to indoctrinate people into Catholicism or try to force people to go ahead with their way of going with things. They've gone and they've used the Bible to justify their harm against children because the Bible God also harms children. And if you want to say that that's not true, that's fine. Feel free living
true.
in your feel free living in your delusional world of falseness.
I think that
because
I
if you took 5 seconds
I
to
think
actually
I
read the
demonstrated that
Bible,
my view-
honestly, you would understand that God does kill children, does tell people to kill children, and that your logic is so backwards. So thank you for your time. I have to get to
Not
work.
True. You're just not engaging with the substance of the argument at all.
That's great. You can have your wrong opinion all you'd like. Thank you for your time. Got to get going. Enjoy the rest of your day. Oh my gosh. Yeah, official, I'll give you 1 minute to say what you would like to say, but I got to get my shoes on and get to work, so it's got to be quick.
Oh no, I was coming up here to talk to the man that was up here actually because it was interesting that he was bringing up other people's practices of their religious and spiritual belief. But didn't in Second Samuel, God made a mandate to Saul saying to eliminate all of the Amorites, which meant the women and the children. Better
Yes,
yet,
actually.
while you're still while he's still if he's still here, obviously, didn't Abraham get told by God to sacrifice his son to him
Yep.
to rectify a doubt?
Yes, indeed. But he would just say that all that's fine because, God's the one that said it, so it's okay.
It's not, but and then I'm gonna leave
I
after this
agree with you,
because
it's not.
it's funny to me that like he was saying like we should as Christians should go into other people's country and stop them from doing. Why do we have to keep doing what Rudyard Kipling wanted in the 1800s with the white tea man's burden? Why are we continuously doing this? Why? Have y'all had enough? But again, I digress. He doesn't even believe that the Inca was even as bad as it was.
Yeah, he thinks that that's a completely good thing that happened, which is just all kinds of backwards. It's really showing how people can only think about something 20% and ignore the rest of the 80. You know. But
It is.
thank you for
go
coming
ahead and
up.
go to work.
Yeah, thank you for
Go
coming
ahead
up.
and
I
go to work.
appreciate your time. Take care.
For sure.
All right, all. Thank you for being here.